We welcome now Brian to address us. Brian, over to you.
I was lying in bed last night, alone and forlorn, wondering to myself what single, memorable, powerful message could I leave with you today to improve your capacity to understand the subject of my presentation, RIP, the NFP member. But having come such a long way, and having listened now, unfortunately, to the very muted tones of your greeting, I've suddenly decided that what I really want to do today is to leave with you an improved capacity to applaud. Keith, would you introduce me again, please, Keith?
Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Hurd.
There is life. There is life. I stand before you, an ageing but passionate lawyer, and one greatly committed to the not-for-profit sector. I think it was Abraham Lincoln or Scooby-Doo who said once, "Be afraid, be very afraid." Because when a lawyer says to you in the NFP sector, "Be afraid," guess what that means? You should be very afraid. Last Monday, I met with a woman called Angela Gifford. She's the CEO of a large for-profit community care provider in the UK called Able Community Care. In the course of that conversation, she said to me, "Brian, you need to understand a bit of history about community care in the UK. In 1980, when I started my business, only 8% of community care providers in the UK were for-profit. Today, Brian," she said, 92% of the community care providers are for-profit. Did you hear that? Be afraid. Be very afraid. Because remember, I'm a lawyer. What does that mean? As a lawyer, people like you come to me with issues. Issues. Have you got issues? And when people come with issues, we see the issues. And what we see are issues. Big and little. What if? What if? Is it in your organisation, like most members in your organisation, they marinate in mediocrity until that one day of the year at the AGM? Is that right? But here's the same what if, slightly different. So what if the aliens, well informed as they were, they'd read the corporations law before they descended to Earth, they realised if they took your members the day before the AGM, you could have an issue. There's an issue. So you would not have the opportunity for your members to come along to that AGM and engage in what I call their democratic calisthenics. Have you seen them? All those in favour, aye. All those against, aye. Do you see that at AGMs? People going like this? It's all calisthenics. It's yoga even, almost amazing. They just put their hands up and say, yay, yay. The reality is, ladies and gentlemen, that in terms of what I see, remember I see, I hear, I feel people's issues in the NFP, we are in a watershed moment. With CDCs, NDIS, government no-go zone for funding, and the infiltration, the incestuous, insidious infiltration of the for-profit sector, your presence, like never before, is under challenge. Trust me, I'm a lawyer. Trust me. And this raises the issue for you about what is the future in terms of your commercial future. Merging, being acquired, going out of business. And when you're talking about these big picture issues, you're talking about members. Members. The whole role of members is about to become much more important than you ever gave them credence for. Because they're the ultimate power in your organisation. The members. Not the board, the members. So, if your organisation's like Mont Saint-Michel, untouched by the lapping tides of change or the dark scudding clouds above, is that you? Well, Rachel likes this one. Rachel Botsman likes this one too. I love this one. That avoidance mentality, the ostrich syndrome, is just rampant. All that. All those little NFPs so weighed down by the daily life of providing services, they look at their belly button each day. They walk in, they look at their belly button, they look and look and look and look and meanwhile, what's happening around them? Just a load of work. So, is that you too? I'm proud to say that I actually took that photograph. I was walking down a street in Spring Hill in Brisbane, and I looked, and I kept walking, and I looked. It's the incapacitated sub-branch. Not just incapacitated, it's a sub-branch of the incapacitated. If that's you, just lay down and die. Just accept it. You're not up to it. Just let someone come in and consume you. All those predators out there who are willing to just let it happen, lie back and let it happen. Here's the menu. The NFP member landscape. Who are we talking about? What are we talking about? What's happening with membership NFPs? The signs of decline, the perils of members, the power of members in the future. Members. What are we actually talking about? Who are they? We're not talking about the board. We're not talking about the board or staff or other people like donors and supporters. We are talking about those people who pay their $10 per year for their annual subscription to be a member of your organisation. Do you know who they are? Do you know how many you've got? They're entitled to attend the AGM and to vote for board members. You can start to see the power, can't you? Huh? Is it starting to ooze and ooze through? What types of NFPs do we have? All sorts, don't we have? Clubs, sports clubs, pastimes, quilters. Anyone here a member of a quilters association? There's one, there's two. Isn't that amazing? They're everywhere. We have passions, people who love cars. I drive a ute. Most people think that's counterintuitive for a lawyer to drive a ute. I tried to get a few of my lawyer mates interested in forming lawyers for utes. Could not get any interest whatsoever. We have people with causes. We have people with virtuals. You know, dating businesses. There's a not-for-profit dating business on the web now called Birds of a Feather. Totally virtual. You can join totally virtual. Peak bodies, you've heard of them, like Laser and AXA, professional bodies like the AMA, but here's the one. This is the one I'm really interested in, the community business one down the bottom, which no doubt most of you are. Community businesses. That's the one I really want to target today in terms of the future of you and your members. The what also includes the two types of missionary positions. Which missionary position has your NFP taken? Are you there to serve the members? To provide them, with their steak and chips on a Saturday night with Bobby Riddell and a few poker machines? You're serving your members. Or is it to serve the community, like aged care? One of the advantages of airline travel is that you can't choose the person you sit next to. Last week I was flying from Melbourne to Sydney, and a lady sat next to me. And after we came to some agreement about the use of our mutual armrest, I told her what I did, and her face just turned slightly to the left. And then I had to ask her, "Madam, what do you do? What's your contribution to Western civilization?" And she said, "Well, I used to be a psychologist and an industrial designer, but now I'm a wayfinder." I said, what? A wayfinder. I said, "What is a wayfinder?" W-A-Y, finder. She said, "I'm going to Sydney as we speak on this plane with you to go to a large public hospital where I'm going to ply my trade, use my psychological qualifications and industrial design on behalf of my organisation to improve the way people move around this public hospital." People movement, signs, the psychology of movement. This is a not-for-profit organisation. Isn't that amazing? A community organisation providing wayfinding services. Fantastic. I love it. So we're talking about serving the community through a community business. That's the theme of today. What's a community business? Does this sound familiar? You're a reaching out organisation. You're extroverted, not introverted, providing needy services in the helping sphere, self-government funded or not, held in high public esteem, generally speaking. Denominational, ethnic or community driven, from microscopic to massive in size. Infiltrated throughout the country, have history. History. You know, the oldest aged care facility in Australia is in Rockhampton. It's called the Rockhampton Benevolent Home. Established in 1866. Anyone in the room beat that? When it was established to care for destitute and deserted wives. Then it turned into a mental institution, and now it's an aged care facility. 1866. Isn't that amazing? They've got member issues. And down the bottom, members. What and who are they in these community businesses? I keep coming down to the bottom of these slides and asking about who these members are, what do they do? The legal structures of community business. You'd be familiar with these. The unincorporated association, the incorporated association, letters, patent cooperatives, companies limited by, they all have members. All have members. The incorporated association, for example. Each state and territory has legislation, varying between a minimum of 5 and 7 in most states, except Tasmania and South Australia, where there's no minimum because no one joins. So they try to encourage the organisations by having zero members. They have a committee of management and a constitution. It's a form of democracy. It is a little form of democracy. Do you get a sense of ownership in an incorporated association? That's problematic, isn't it? For your $10, do you get a sense of ownership? I'm a part owner of this incorporated association. Oh, I don't think so. Then there's the company limited by guarantee. This is the real opportunity for incorporated associations governed by the corporations law, where the minimum number of members is 1. That's all you need. 1 member to form a company limited by guarantee. 1. So you can start to see the historical cleavage that's developing here. The incorporated association and even the unincorporated association preceded the creation of the company limited by guarantee. What the government did by prescribing a minimum number of members between 5 and 7 for incorporated associations was encouraging people to join. See, it was a community encouragement. You had to have a minimum number of members, so you had to find people to join. The new development is, I don't think so. All we need is an excuse for members. Just 1. Just 1. That's all we need, just 1, to make up the numbers. So what's the state of members in the not-for-profit world? What currently is the situation? But first, a comparison. In the for-profit world, you would have heard of that. Public and private companies, where there's members called shareholders in the ascendancy, with increasing hegemony and power. There's democracy, sort of. Ownership and financial investment in the hands of the members, the shareholders, because they're investing and they're looking for a return. And they've got boards who are paranoid about them because they're, oh, shock, horror, they're accountable to their members. An increasing trend for members to sue boards in class or derivative actions. Members aren't passive anymore, they're active. called shareholder activism. Arise, the age of the for-profit member, the age of member rights and retribution, and board responsibility and accountability. Yum. What about the NFP member? Is it the age of Aquarius for the NFP member like it is in the for-profit field, where Venus and Mars are ready to come in line? I don't think so. We have obsolescence and obscurity, and that has implications. That has implications. The signs are that not-for-profits are ignoring or discounting the role and value of their members. That's a worry. That's a worry. You'll see why in a minute. Member obsolescence is caused by a number of things. Membership decline, converting legal structures, variations on the NFP model, growth of what's called Clayton's members, the members you have when you don't have members. Social media and government emphasis on commerciality, not community. Membership decline, the first sign that members are obsolete. It is a fact that membership is declining across the NFP world. Fact. Because joining is redundant to contributing. Why pay my $10 and join when I can contribute in other ways? What's the point? There's a shift as to how we participate. You don't have to be a member to participate and contribute. They go from active to passive. They're checkbook members. They hibernate. Then they come out when they get a check. So member management or engagement is a lost art or cause. How many of you have member engagement officers? Huh? No one. No one has member engagement officers. Why bother? We'll see shortly why you should. They're hijacked by just find me the money mantra. I don't want to find a member, thank you very much. I want to find the money. The second sign are conversion rates. This is where lawyers are really useful. We're generally useful, especially if we charge reasonable fees like we do. What are you laughing at? The best way to quell pesky members, if you have them, is to reduce their numbers. Shoot them. Line them up at the AGM and go bang, 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 bang. That's going to kill the problem. But if that's not your preferred option, the best way is to convert your incorporated association. Remember, you've got to have at least between 5 and 7 members. Convert it to a company limited by guarantee when you only have to have 1. You can euthanize them just by converting. And a lot of people are doing it. It's happening. It's happening. Because members get in the way of commercial decision making, as we'll see in a minute. And there's an increasing trend to do this over and over again. Another sign, variations on the model. So the model of the NFP is having all sorts of variations imposed. This is one of them, the self-perpetuating NFP. This is where the members of the board are the members. I bet there's a few people in this organisation with an organisation just like that. They're not elected really, they are recruited. There's a minimum membership and they're commercially nimble, a very effective commercial vehicle for a not-for-profit because you don't have to worry about those pesky board members because all the board members are members. They wear 2 hats when they walk into the board meeting, as a member and as a board member. Can't go wrong, can you? Can't go wrong. Small problem with accountability, of course. You've got to take one hat off and talk to the other hat, then put that hat on and talk to the other hat. It's just a little issue, as a lawyer would see it. Little issue. But very effective as a tool to get rid of members or distance them from the organisation. Here's another variation. The NFP subsidiary. This is happening where NFPs are trying to get rid of members or at least limit their role. So what happens is they set up a subsidiary, usually a company limited by guarantee, only need 1 member. The subsidiary is the parent not-for-profit. So now you've got 2 not-for-profits. You've got the parent not-for-profit, and they've just established over here a subsidiary not-for-profit, company limited by guarantee, whose only member is the parent NFP. It's incestuous, but it's very effective. Because what are you doing? You're transferring some of the business to another entity in which the only member is that NFP over there. not the actual members of the NFP. The NFP is the member of this one. So what you're doing is you're quarantining the members. They're right over there. They don't have a constant direct touch on this NFP subsidiary. Very effective. The other way is to set up the for not for profit for profit. The for not for profit for profit, where the NFP establishes a for-profit company. For profit. Where the NFP is the sole shareholder. So it's the only shareholder. It has one share in the Pty Ltd company. So how does it work? The Pty Ltd company does whatever it does and then remits dividends to the shareholder who is the not-for-profit for the benefit of the not-for-profit's business. So members, of course, members of the NFP are now disenfranchised even more because they've been distanced from the operation of that Pty Ltd company. Another sign, the morphing of membership. We don't have members anymore, we have competitors for members. We have supporters, donors, volunteers, partners, followers, bequesters. See that stuff in brackets? Thinking of dying then? That's a quote. Because I won't name the organisation, I saw an advertisement in a periodical by this organisation which was looking for bequests, and the head words, the catchline was, thinking of dying then. It was in the ad. Thinking of dying then. Is that how you'd raise funds? Get them when they're almost down? If you're thinking about it, we'll give you the opportunity to do something about it. Do we have people called involvers? Involvers. People called eventers. All they do is go along to an NFP event. You know those sort of people? Could even be the AGM, because when you go to the AGM, what do you get? You get food. Food. And the best ones are those ones that come in those big silver oblong trays. You know those ones? And they've wrapped this cling wrap over it really tightly, and they put the egg and lettuce sandwich right at the top, and they squash the egg and lettuce sandwich down, so you just look at it, I've got to have that. Guaranteed to bring that AGM to a grinding halt really quickly once you put that food in front of them. Epicureans, we call them. They're not members, they're Epicureans. And we've got people called granters of wishes. So out there are NFPs looking for bequests for people called granters of wishes. If you give us something, we'll grant you a wish. Whatever you want. So these are the Clayton's members. These are the alternatives to the members as we know them. Because the organisations want donations and physical support. It beats that $10 annual subscription any day, doesn't it? Because it's just show me your money or your time, not your subscription. Not interested in your $10. Don't you believe me? Here is Alzheimer's Australia Queensland website. Now I've extracted from their website the actual words they use with the introduction, the catch cry, the come hither, let's get you tagline. Get involved, Queensland. How can we do that? We can become a regular giver, make a one-off donation, make a gift of money in a friend or relative, celebrate a special occasion. I've just had a diagnosis of dementia, yippee! Yippee! Leave a bequest, fundraise for us, become a sponsor. It's the ABBA ethos, isn't it? Money, 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 etc. Nowhere on their website can I find out how to become a member. Nowhere. I want to join Alzheimer's, because I want to join it. I want to have a say in the way the organisation... I can't find a way to join. Despite the fact, undoubtedly, their constitution would require them to have members. But I cannot join. Because why? They do. Madam, you've just reminded me of a point I always should make in audiences like this. There are 3 types of people in an audience. Did you know that? Those people that sit in the front row. They're here because they're hungry and salivating for knowledge and information. Look at she's taking notes ever since I opened my mouth. Then there's the people that sit in the second row. They're here because they've got nothing else better to do. May as well come and listen to the lawyer talk about RIPs. But then there's a vast majority of people that sit down at the back of an audience. You know what I'm told they do? They sit there the whole time and think about nothing but sex. So, madam, if you continue in that interruption phase, I suggest you go down the back where, unfortunately, I can't see a spare chair, unfortunately. So, excuse me, can I become a member? So what's happening? I'm now being excluded from joining. So this is how the NFPs are working, see? They're insidiously working away to prevent people like me joining. Because I'm an issue. An issue. We don't want members. And then there's another sign of decline in membership. Social media. The new currency of interest for the interested, isn't it? Not membership. NFPs are not chasing members, they're engaging with Twitter followers, aren't they? We don't want members, we want Twitter followers. That's what we want. The internet used to be a controlled one-way information and messaging service. Now you can exchange and converse with millions. You can join a conversation without joining the organisation. There's nothing special about being a member when anyone can access your favourite NFP online, even their annual reports, and express views online. So social media is another enemy of the member of NFPs. Another sign, the government. They're crucial, aren't they, to most of our survivability. But when was the last time you saw the following criterion in a tender, document or a funding agreement? Must have active member engagement program. Ever seen that precondition in the government funding contract or tender? Never seen it myself. I've seen hundreds of them, but I've never seen that in a tender condition document. They're not interested. All they're interested in is outcomes. Outcomes. Not altruism. So ask yourself these questions. This question. In your organisation, list 5 reasons why I would benefit from becoming a member of your organisation. Remember, a member. Pay my subscription. What's the 5 benefits for me? What would they be? Can you think of one? Apart from the sandwiches? I don't want you, because you'll need time to answer these questions. In the good old days, most people didn't need time to answer these questions. Most people knew what the answers were in the good old days, around the time of the Andrews sisters. But these days, I challenge any of you to provide answers to those 5 questions this year. Why worry, Brian? What's the fuss? We just push them down underneath the blanket, cover them up, then uncover them when we come to the AGM. What's the problem? This is what I said at the start of my presentation. It never used to be a problem, but it's becoming a problem because of what's happening out there in the big marketplace of NFPs. It's happening. If they're surplus to your efficient requirements, does it matter that members are moribund? Moribund. The board is a benevolent oligopoly, isn't it? Every board member in this room says, yes, my board is a benevolent oligopoly. The board is usually made up of members anyway, Brian. What's your problem? The board is accountable to the law, Brian. What's your problem? The board knows best, Brian. Look at that corporate governance manual on that shelf over there. They know. They've dusted it off once a year when they have their corporate governance review. They know what they're doing. Members have no idea. They just get in the way. They're trouble. Boards do better looking forward with both eyes as opposed to looking forward with one and using the other eye to look at their members. All right, here's the reason why you need to worry. If you ignore your members, you do so at your peril. Because, for 2 reasons. One, they're compulsory. Remember, you've got to have them. And secondly, because they've got power. And they're starting to use it. They have power. And they suddenly realise they do have power. It's like Superman. He didn't realise for a long time he had superpowers. But then he did one day. And boy, the rest is history, as they say. You can't avoid having members. Even if they are just members of the parent NFP, they can still influence what happens in subsidiaries. Many NFPs have to live with historical membership rights created when the organisation was more engaging. And no better evidence of that problem is in relation to a mental health organisation I'm currently trying to assist in a restructuring. You know that word, restructuring? It was set up 30 years ago to help those people with mental illness, a very philanthropic, altruistic organisation. It created 30 years ago a constitution which said this: there had to be a certain proportion of the members of the association who had a mental illness. And then they went one step further. They said not only that, at least 2 of the 9 board members had to have a mental illness. So can you imagine, I'm not being critical of them, but can you imagine the issues that can arise on that board every time they have a board meeting? When they ask 2 questions: boys and girls, have you read the minutes? Mm-hmm. And secondly, have you taken your medication? This is a real challenge, because this board wants to totally reorientate the Constitution and get rid of the provision that allows for a specific ratio of people with mental illness to be members of the organisation. That's a real challenge. That's a real challenge because it's becoming an issue. Why is it becoming an issue? Because this organisation has had an application for someone to take them over. And the board is very supportive of it because they see the end is near. They're tired, they've had enough. It's very wearing to run this organisation. Along comes a white knight and says, we'll take it over, thanks. But guess who won't agree? The board members with the mental illness. And understandably, because they can see their remit being thrown away to some unrelated organisation. It makes change difficult. The power of members is their power to really totally reorientate an organisation, where they had their one day in the sun at the AGM, where they can elect board members, change board decisions, sack the board. Did you know they can sack the board? Under Section 209 of the Corporations Law, they can convert legal structures, change the Constitution, approve restructuring and wind them up. And you can imagine how those powers impact on the operations of NFP. You can imagine. You read that? I don't think there's a collection of words that really conveys the theme I'm trying to convey to you today, and that is, with the amount of merger and acquisition and movement shifting sands out in the NFP marketplace, the last thing most predator NFPs want to see are organisations they want to consume who've got members. Members. And this is a quote from a CEO who discovered one day that in relation to their target NFP, they had 123 members. Oh my God. Oh my God. The biggest challenge for them was not the mechanics of takeover, it was convincing those 123 people that this is a good idea. This is a good idea. It was enough to put this CEO off. They weren't prepared to pursue it. It was just too hard, trying to convince 123 people. And you can imagine how desperate they were. Their commercial power of members. Fact, merging, amalgamating or takeovering is the only way for many NFPs to survive in the future. Fact. Trust me, I often advise NFPs today that's your only future, if you're consuming or being consumed. Fact. You can't usually do any of those things without the unequivocal support of the members. Fact. Your future is nothing if the members are not on board with the board when you have to face reality. Example number 1. Now you probably got shares in private companies. You can trade your shares, you can sell them, transfer them, whatever. Your ownership of that company is held in those equitable instruments called shares, which you can trade. Did you know you can trade members in a not-for-profit organisation too? Here's an example. Takeover of a small rural not-for-profit aged care provider by a bigger NFP. Sound familiar? The strategy of the takeover NFP was to keep the little NFP in place after they took it over and not to wind it up. But they were going to replace the directors and the members of the little NFP with their own representatives. They wanted all 24 members to resign their membership. This is where I normally throw in a curly one to see if you're still listening. I either throw in a typographical error or a mathematical error. You people down the back wouldn't be interested, but certainly you people up the front here. Is that right? No. Have I missed by 2? Yes, thank you very much. Anyway, they couldn't get all of them to agree to resign their membership. The only way the distance would agree was if allowed to become members of the acquiring NFP. So they were prepared to walk out of the old one and walk into the new one. There was 9 of them. Guess how many members there were on the NFP coming in to take them over? 6. 6 plus 9 is 15. Guess what those 9 people would have then had? Control of the old NFP. It's called reverse takeover. Isn't that amazing? You come and take me over. Okay, come and take me, come and take me, come and take me, and then around the back, I'll take you over. And they look behind and go, oh, hey. Isn't that amazing? That was their condition. Ugly. Really ugly. See, this is what can happen. Example number 2, we call them boomerang members. Here's a takeover of an NFP by another in a regional home care sector. The target had been around for 50 years. They're a household name in the community. Members agreed to the takeover, but only after the acquiring NFP signed a deed poll. Ever heard of a deed poll? Most people associate deed polls with changing your name. You can use it for other reasons. So this victim of the takeover, the members wanted the takeover organisation to sign this deed poll, which provided that if the new NFP ceased operating in the region, then they must transfer the name to another entity which operated a similar community service in the area and pay a sum of money equivalent to the current market value of the old NFP real property to the similar community service provider. So what the members are doing is they're holding on to the testicles of that NFP in case they didn't do the right thing, and then if they didn't, they were going to squeeze even harder and make them do something that they couldn't control at this stage in their takeover. Isn't it incredible? This is happening in the NFP world. You thought it was all Christianity. It's not. But these are members exercising their power. Final one. The members bite. Takeover by one FP by another. Targets constitutional out. Oh my God. Oh my God. When I read that, staff members to be members of the association, I go ding, 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 ding. Board sought approval of members to take over and wind up. They lost the vote at a general meeting as the staff members, concerned for their jobs, did their homework and got supporting members to the meeting and put a successful motion as well to sack the board and replace them with their own nominees under Section 203D of the Corporations Act, and they were successful. Isn't that incredible? They're members. Should we be concerned? There's a perfect storm brewing, in my view. Trust me, I see it happening. Ponder this. If after hearing this presentation you believe that active members are the lifeblood of any organisation, it does not matter if the organisation's purposes, business, social, political advocacy or any other goal, without active members an organisation will die. Having pondered that, think about this. This is the minute of a board meeting of a healthy lifestyle organisation, USA. Item 6, headed Membership. It was discussed that as advocates for and believers in a healthy lifestyle, members should be seen as good examples of such a lifestyle. Resolution. It was resolved that a motion be put to the next general meeting of the organisation to amend the constitution so that the qualification for all members to be or remain a member is to have a body mass index, BMI, no higher than 22. Anyone qualify for membership of that organisation? There's one. Ladies and gentlemen, the fate of your future could be in the hands of your members, not your board. It won't be a case of RIP NFP members, it'll be a case of VIP NFP members. Thank you for your time.
Can you stay on the stage, Commissioner? Oh, what an incredible presentation that was. You only want members if they are excited about being a member. What's the best way to make them say, gee, I'm glad, I'm happy to be a member?
Right. See, I'm a lawyer. And I'm not a marketer, I'm not a brand manager or reputation manager. How you make members excited is not my skill or expertise, except to say you need to make them excited because they are your future. How you do that, Keith, is not my expertise. The reality is, the more engaged they are, the more contact you have with them. It's important, isn't it? They don't want to get a notice of annual general meeting once a year. And that's the last and the first time you hear in any particular year. There's got to be some form of engagement, some form of communication, something that at least tells them that their membership is worth something. But that's for other people. That's not for me. Yeah. I'm a specialist.
Our members are our board members only, and we have over 200 volunteers. Is this the way to go? Advice to others? Get rid of your members and convert them to volunteers.
Correct.
That's the advice that you're giving as well.
I think get rid of your members. And I say that in the best legal sense. In other words, if you can reduce the number of members, do that, because they will be a hindrance potentially to your future commercial nimbleness. They will. They may not like it, but it's the most commercial resolution of your future is to get rid of them or reduce their numbers. If you want to, you might still be a mission-driven organisation and you want members, you want to encourage members. Fine, do that, encourage them. But understand the downside of doing that when it comes to making commercially viable decisions. If you've got passionate members who aren't commercially viable or interested in being commercially viable, that's a problem when you want to be commercially viable. There's a clash of culture. And remember the power they have. They can literally white ant your future.
Does corporations law apply to incorporated associations?
No. Next question. No, it doesn't. Corporations law applies to corporations formed under the Corporations Act, whereas each state and territory's incorporated association legislation applies to incorporated associations.
Right. So you go down one route or the other.
Correct.
Yep. Without members, the accountability of not-for-profits is limited. We need to redefine a value-added role, which includes holding the NFP to account. Without members, the accountability of NFPs is limited. Now, I guess the question here is asking, how do you build accountability into the NFP, or does the NFP just become simply a holy little club which runs its own affairs?
That's right. That's the choice you have, basically. Stay as you are, get more members, or get rid of them. That's your choice. Matching your future viability with your constitutional structure. Do they really match? Do they really work together? In most cases, they don't.
If we get rid of our members, to whom are we accountable?
The law.
Just the law?
And creditors. And
creditors, yep.
In fact, you have to ask yourself, why have members? Why do we have members? If the law allows you to have one for a company limited by guarantee, why have one? Why have zero?
What's a good number of members to aim for? Zero, by the sounds of it. Three people are wanting to know the answer to that.
I thought zero was the answer.
Zero, okay.
But the law doesn't allow you to have zero.
Right. How can we resurrect honest value in member-based organisations?
Honest values in member-based organisations. Look, one of the cleavages in the commercial reality of NFPs is that there's a lot of confidential discussion that goes on by boards and their representatives in relation to commercial arrangements. It'd be nice to say, of course, you want to share that information with your members so that your members can see what you're doing. I had organisations, for example, who send out their directors' minutes to all their members each month. I said, don't do that. Don't do that. Anybody do that in the audience? But a fantastic way of being transparent, accountable, isn't it? Communicating with them. This is what's happening at the board level. This is where the decisions, these are the decisions, this is what's happening. Fantastic accountability, isn't it? But a financial disaster. If any way you want to encourage people to join your organisation and become active members is to send them the director's minutes. That'll get them going. It always does. So we've had organisations make a decision not to send directors' minutes to their members. It still leaves you with the issue of how you engage them, if you want to. My story to you is, don't. Let them resign. Reduce their numbers. Shoot them.
Members are directors. Directors are members. A privately owned, not-for-profit organisation.
Yes, for all intents and purposes. That's right. Answer is yes.
It's a privately owned organisation if you're providing aged care or childcare. Who is the ideal member? One that is representative of the clients that the organisation serves. Do you want to have on your not-for-profit board a representative of the client? So let's say it's the Royal Blind Society. Do you wish to have a visually impaired client as one of the directors of the board?
Yes, there are quite a lot of organisations who have what's called stakeholder members.
Stakeholder members,
who
right.
represent a particular segment of the community or a particular circumstance. They are also a disaster, from my experience. And the reason is obvious. They all have their own agenda.
Yeah.
And when people have their own separate agendas, getting agreement on things is almost impossible. So what happens is the organisation goes into a state of inertia. It just can't do anything, can't make any forward motion, like the donkey. Remember that slide, the donkey? That's what happens with stakeholder organisations. They cannot make any forward motion. And the board is left up in the air with all the baggage keeping the donkey up in the air without any motion.
Well, we've started the day with a very radical presentation. We've ended the day with a very radical presentation as well. Would you please join me in thanking Brian? Thanks very much, Brian. Brilliant.